What if ESCAVALIER was in Gen 1 OU? It's been a while since I've covered a honest to good bug type in Gen 1, and these used to be some of my favorite videos to do. In fact, I'm pretty sure my most popular video is Mega Beedrill in Gen 1 OU. And Mega Beedrill in that original video had one move that was pretty good, but only because it was a bug type with I guess you can call it a strong bug move, and that's Twin Needle, which ESCAVALIER also has. Now, unlike Mega Beedrill, this thing is definitely sacrificing a lot of speed. In fact, an unreasonable amount, where it's actually really detrimenting you. But on the bright side, you have actual defensive stats and a fantastic defensive typing. Now, Steel Bug, that's already really good in any generation, but I'm going to argue it's a little bit better in RBY because of two reasons. One, Ice, Psychic, and Normal are all at their strongest, but those are the three most common attacking types, and you resist all three of them. And unlike normal Steel, with that bug typing, you only take neutral from ground, and you have a good defensive stat of 105. So that's already pretty good. But what's even better is that Fire Blast is very few and far between. There is only 2 Pokemon that use it, pretty much. You're only really going to see the occasional Fire Blast Tauros and Fire Blast Moltres. Though I suppose with ESCAVALIER in the format, Fire Blast Snorlax is potentially a possibility. But honestly, that's the good thing though. ESCAVALIER works great with fire resist like Starmie. And since there's only so few good usable Fire Blast users, I think that makes you really capable of checking your weakness. Because if there's only 3 qualified candidates for Fire Blast, that means it's really easy to scout out. And in some ways, having a low speed even makes it even better. Because Snorlax, if it were to have Fire Blast, and it's actually can outspeed you because it's base 30 speed, you can threaten an Oko. So that's the easiest Starmie or Chansey switching of your life. And if those things get banned, oh boy, it's not going to be fun. So, just great. Like, better than any generation. And on top of that, 105 in both defenses is already really good. Admittedly, your HP is just average, which kind of sucks. Not that you're struggling to take hits, but you don't have reliable recovery. Although that's not the biggest deal in the world, because this guy's already essentially just a bigger, meaner, stronger pincer with actual coverage and stab. So, it's not the biggest deal in the world. I think that's just a bias on my end, because normally I'm the type of player who either likes big offensive, kill immediately, have high speed with good crit rates. I either want that, or I want basically all of my Pokemon having recovery. So that's a bias on my part, so like, I'm not going to apologize for it, because it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I think I've gone over its defensive prowess enough. So let's go over its move pool, which works pretty well, because you have the exact same attack stat as Alakazam has special. So, Twin Needle, a move that most people would never think about, is pretty good here, I'm gonna say. Now, I know it's still a low base power move, but there's 2 things you gotta remember. One, this is the only bug coverage in the game, so you are the only thing that can hit Psychic types super effectively. And 2, Stab is 50% bonus in RBY. So I'm pretty sure my math's probably off, but I think these are relative to, like, honestly, it's probably around Slash's power if I had to do the math. Although, if I'm really bad, I might say that with 50%, these are essentially just 2 base 50 moves, but I don't think it's that strong. I'm pretty sure it's not as strong as a neutral earthquake, but I'm sure someone can let me know with the calcs below. I'm just really bad with math, and that I will apologize for. But it doesn't matter either way, because you have Sword Stance, and you're going to be using Sword Stance no matter what anyways. Now, unfortunately, because of your speed, not only is Slash not a guaranteed KO, but you straight up have the worst crit rate in the game of any fully evolved Pokemon. And because of that, in general, you're just not getting that many crits. So you're just using it as a poor man's Hyper Beam. I think you have Strength. Let me try to look up just in case. You don't even have that. That's a shame. Double Edge? Okay, you have Double Edge at least. So, is that better? Because even though you don't have an auto crit, you technically do have... It's technically a better chance for a crit. Honestly, no. I think Double Edge is probably just better here. So, yeah, I will admit, that's pretty weird. It doesn't get Body Slam either, in case you're wondering. But who really cares? Because Double Edge with Sword Stance is terrifying. And this thing with Hyper Beam, I can't think of too many things that want to tank that. The only things are Rhydon and Gengar. And unlike Pinsir, because of Twin Needle, you can actually hit it. And with Sword Stance, Twin Needle is a 2-hit KO. So that's honestly pretty good. I think the biggest problem is by far the speed. Which, slow Pokemon is nothing new for things I've covered on the series. But slower than Slowbro and Snorlax is really bad. Like, this thing, if you're taking chip damage from Slowbro and Snorlax without even being paralyzed, that's kind of an issue. And it makes me almost consider using Rest on this thing. Although I don't think it's really worth it, because again, because of your speed, you're just going to be taking a lot of hits. So you're much better off waiting till the late game, go for Sword Stance, and try to murder with this thing. Which, to be fair, not the hardest thing to do. Because even before the late game, because of its amazing typing, it's just a pretty good pivot. And it can hit pretty much everything pretty hard. Now, I will say, now it's a little bit different in older gens. In RBY, only the second attack has a 20% chance to poison. But to be honest, that's probably a good thing. Because potentially poisoning your opponents is rather annoying. But in other ways, this guy's kind of a more consistent version of what I was talking about with Volcanion the other day. Because with Volcanion, that has a 30% chance to burn. What I was arguing, the burn chance is not that bad. Because it helps you with chip damage, which can put Explosion in the good damage ranges for Chansey and Starmie. Twin Needle isn't as bad as the chance to burn. Because for one, 20% still annoying, but that's still not as high as, 30%. But more importantly, Twin Needle is, I'm going to say, inherently a more spammable move than Fire Blast. Because, well, the simple fact is, Twin Needle is super effective against most of the things that you would want to poison. Or that they would want you to poison. For example, Starmie. Starmie is probably the best Pokemon you can possibly poison. But you know what it doesn't like to hit? Twin Needle. It does not like that whatsoever. Chansey, admittedly, is a much more annoying. But not only can Chansey just, have to face other things like Psychic types in the game anyways. But with Sword Stance, Twin Needle also has the chance to do good damage. And even more so when you include Double Edge and Hyper Beam into the mix. So, Chansey, yeah, it could go wrong, but at the same time, Chansey isn't going to immediately kill you, and I would argue Chansey has to paralyze you. Otherwise, this thing is just gonna very easily go for SD, and then put Chansey in Hyper Beam range. So, no matter what, it's not really a fair fight. it's much different with Tauros, because if Tauros goes for Fire Blast, and then Starmie or Chansey get paralyzed, they can immediately threaten Thunder Wave, and crippling your Tauros' speed is basically a game over. This thing is already the slowest Pokemon in the format, so how much does it really care about paralysis? So that's just one of the reasons why. Overall, that's pretty much everything I'd like to say when it comes to the pre-analysis. Although I would like to ask you guys, are any of you curious in Pokemon Infinite Fusion? Because in my Discord server, we are actually going to be having a tournament soon in Infinite Fusion. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you don't have too much to worry about. Literally just join the server, and making a Pokeathlon account is free. People are already talking about it. If you go on the Pokemon channel and my server, you'll see many different people showing off different things they're trying to cook with, and it will be a lot of fun. You should definitely join, because I haven't done anything like this before, and I personally haven't cooked too much with Infinite Fusion, but I'm looking forward to experiencing with you guys, so please consider joining. But for now, let's get right into the replays. Starting with the boy himself, we got Tauros. I didn't bother with the Fire Blast replay. That, I think, should be self-explanatory. So here's just Earthquake, which is the only real thing you can use against it. And even then, you need a crit just to do a 3-hit KO. As you see there, Twin Needle already does almost half with a Sword Stance. And Poison on Tauros isn't really that bad. It's not the best thing, because it means you're not statusing it in other ways. But still, Rest Tauros isn't really that common, so if you manage to, get some chip and then have it deal with poison damage, at the bare minimum, I think that makes you winning the Tauros Mirror basically guaranteed unless they crit Hyper Beam. Now for Snorlax, it's really annoying that it's faster than you. But on the bright side, you only need 2 Sword Stance to be a max attack at 999. That's pretty good. And as you can see there, with that max attack stat, you almost OHKO Snorlax, which is insane that you have that much attack power behind you. Granted, I'm not sure if 2 Sword Stance is optimal. I don't do too much outside these replays, so I don't really know what the damage ranges are. In fact, most of the time I make these replays, this is my first time actually getting a look at how much the damage do to each other. But let's look at Reflectalax, because I know it's not the most popular thing at the moment, but it might be worth considering. Unfortunately, I think this kind of shows a bit of a problem with Twin Needle, where unless it has low defense or is a psychic type, not really doing that much. Although I will say, now that I'm considering Double Edge over Slash, I'm assuming it won't be as big of an issue anymore. Because Double Edge is 100 base power, so you're probably going to be alright with damage, if I do say so myself. Now for Chansey, I had to make multiple replays because I had 3 replays in a row where ESCAVALIER was paralyzed twice in a row, like you see there. Incredibly annoying, but that's the only real thing you're probably going to be threatened by. Because outside of that, Chansey is 2-hit KO'd by Twin Needle. Slash alone already is 54%, so imagine how much Double Edge would do. So it really just comes down to paralysis. Because, honestly, Chansey probably wouldn't even stay in anyways. But at the same time, what do you switch into when ESCAVALIER has a Sword Stance already up? And for me personally, I'd probably just still go for Twin Needle over Double Edge. Because I would probably imagine they would be switching into, a normal resist, like Rhydon, or Ghost type, right? And Rhydon's another Pokemon that probably does carry poison in, since it likes to use Substitute, and also, more importantly, it doesn't have recovery. But for now, let's keep moving. Chansey is a could go either way. Or actually, I think I take it back. Looking at it again, I think that looks more like a good replay, where you're only losing to paralysis. And that's not really ESCAVALIER's fault if that's the case. Just like here, if it were the Wizard Zam, it would only be because of paralysis. But I'm not really gonna call this a could go either way, because Zam has low defense and is weak to Twin Needle, even without Sword Stance. So, what's it supposed to do? So yeah, when I get to the tier list, I'm changing it. I'm putting Chansey in good matchups, which I'm thankful for, because the tier list looks weird right now, and you'll see what I mean in a little bit. But here we have Cloyster. Now, for the most part, Cloyster's pretty unwinnable, but there are two merits here that I want to mention. The first and obvious is that you resist Blizzard, so at the bare minimum, you're pretty good at pivoting. But along with that, if Cloyster does switch into you, and you go for Twin Needle, it's one of the few moments where poison isn't that bad, because if Cloyster's poisoned, it isn't actually free to just clamp all day anymore, because it's taking chip damage along with the chip damage that it's trying to do to you with clamp. Obviously, the match is still unwinnable, because Cloyster's high defense, a trapping movement is faster, but that's just one of the things I think is pretty funny. But what's even funnier, winning a Psychic Grass type against a Steel Bug type, I wonder how that's gonna go. Not very well. That's the answer. Not well at all. Terrible, one could even say. Now, I already kind of mentioned this one, but with Twin Needle, you 2-hit KO Gengar. But a funny thing I'm gonna say is that, because you resist Explosion, I think in this situation, Gengar's better trying to fish for a crit rather than going for Explosion. Which you might be better off doing anyways, just, to potentially highball, but I don't know, I just thought it was pretty interesting. And looking at it again, I might need to put Gengar in good matchups as well. I originally had it in could go either way, but that might not be the case. Now for Jolteon, ESCAVALIER actually does have a chance to win this, but despite you surviving a crit in a normal Thunderbolt, I'm gonna keep this in bad matchup, because I think most of the time paralysis and crit rates just puts it in Jolteon's favor, and ESCAVALIER needs to go for Sword Stance, so that's just my thought process. It's a good thing you don't have to worry about Jolteon. Granted, I definitely would not use ESCAVALIER as an anti-meta, or not anti-meta, anti-lead Pokemon, because Jinx can just put it to sleep. So this matchup in general is probably non-existent, but still, if it were to happen, or at the bare minimum, you can just resist both of Jinx's stabs. That's pretty good. Now, being slower than Rhydon's really, really bad, because even with your high defenses, this is an example of why having only average HP kind of sucks with how low your speed is. Rhydon hurts you really badly. But you know what? At the bare minimum, maybe you can get it poisoned. If you get it poisoned, then it's something, I guess. Now here's Slowbro. I kind of like this one. I think this one's pretty interesting. With Sword Stance, you already are enough to 2-hit KO Slowbro. So does Slowbro bother going for Thunder Wave? Or does it just go for one Amnesia so that you can 2-hit KO with Surf? I guess even in that case, Slowbro's still really low, so it can get revenge killed very easily. So it's a good way either way, and one where both of them are not having a very good time. Now for Starmie, I guess with Surf it can do better, but Psychic and Blizzard you completely resist, and Thunderbolt isn't Stab. So you kind of need to get a bit lucky. And by lucky, I mean lucky on Starmie's case to do decent damage. And look at that. See how that did 45? Double Edge definitely would have killed there. Not that you need it, because Twin Needle does a lot of good damage. You do great against Starmie, and that's fantastic. Just like how putting a random Gen 5 Pokemon makes it good with Twin Needle. This is exactly why I love, making these videos so much. Because who would have thought a random Pokemon like ESCAVALIER would be OU? But it has all the tools to really thrive in this generation. Well, that has very little to do with Victory Bell. But quad resisting Razor Leaf, but doing quad damage to Victory Bell in return, since Poison is weak to Bug, that's really funny. And I get you about that. Now, last but not least, we have Zapdos. And I know I put Jolteon in bad matchup, but I'm going to say Zapdos could go either way, which is kind of crazy, but honestly, I think maybe it's just bias, or maybe it's just because it doesn't have as good of crit rate, but that's probably cope on my part, so I think we should change that. Let's put you in bad, and then let's put Gengar and Chansey in good, because Gengar's only really winning with a crit. Overall, though, yeah, this is a pretty good tier list. ESCAVALIER is pretty good, and surprise, surprise, all of the Psychic types in Victory Bell are great matchups. What do you think? Do you think ESCAVALIER would be OU? If so, where do you think it would be on the viability rankings? There's definitely no doubt in my mind that it would be the best Sword Stance user. But what other moves would you consider on it? Let me know in the comments below. And definitely consider joining our Infinite Fusion tournament. It costs nothing, and I'll also be making videos on it as well. They're going to be done as sort of a mixture of my old Jumble videos as well as these what if videos. The first half of the video will be me talking about a sort of Ketonian fusion. For example, let's say fusing Executor and Chansey, talking about how that would do in RB1, and then giving you an update on how it is with the tournament. That's just how things are going to be planned, and I'll let you know in the future. Like, I'll give you more updates as things go on. I can't give you a date now because we're still waiting for the Sinnoh tournament to finish. But I'll keep you guys updated. But until next time, this is Groundback, and I look forward to hearing from you. Anything else? Wait, oh yeah, I guess I'll say this real quickly. I also am going to be having family over for the next month, so I might be a little less active than usual, but I should be able to get videos done, but we'll have to see. For real though, like this time, I look forward to hearing from you.